Imagine the Queen wanting to stay at your house. It's unbelievable, right? Roderick's family felt the same way. As soon as they got to know about her visit to the farm, they went all out in preparing for her stay in their rural home to be the most pleasant and comfortable. So now in this video, we're going to talk about how Queen Elizabeth II spent the night on the Tasmanian family's farm during her visit in 1954. To start off, we're going to talk about Her Majesty's first visit to Tasmania. The first time Her Majesty went to Tasmania was in February of 1954, just 1 year after she became Queen. The Queen's husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, went with her on the trip, as he did every time she went to the States. In February of 1954, she spent 4 days in Tasmania to celebrate the state's 150th birthday, and during that time, she felt it was the perfect opportunity for her to go up and visit different parts of the state. The royal couple was met by an official motorcade, a military parade, and a colorful performance by thousands of local school children. Her Majesty and Prince Philip went to Hobart, where they stayed at the government house and planted an oak tree in the main drive. After that, the royal couple flew from Hobart to Wynyard and then drove to Burnie for a red carpet occasion and to attend a lunch in the Burnie courtroom. The trip continued through the northwest, stopping in Devonport to see the Devonport Oval and then going to the La Trobe. Her Majesty and the Duke then went to Launceston, where she was met by Mayor Hedley George Pitt. A marching demonstration of young Tasmanians from school then took place at York Park. Her Majesty was genuinely interested in our people and our beautiful state, and she enjoyed the chance to meet and talk to many Tasmanians about their lives. Next up, the Queen stayed the night at Connerville. During the 1954 royal tour of Tasmania, Roderick O'Connor's father and grandmother gave the Queen a place to spend the night. Roderick wasn't yet born at the time, so we know this was pretty ancient. The Queen and Prince Philip decided to stay with them at the ancient Connerville Wool Estate in Cressy, which was one of Tasmania's most famous farming properties. All through their tour, it was the only private home where the royal couple decided to stay. Mr. O'Connor mentioned that the arrangement they made beforehand for the Queen's arrival were absolutely massive. He further elaborated on this by telling us that they went as far as to construct the whole area around the farm so that it was best suited for a queen. From building roadways to all sorts of things, including the public street area and the surrounding farm, they left no stone unturned. The Queen's visit wasn't unannounced though. A lot of people had been informed way ahead of time that the Queen would be staying. But despite the time gap, the preparations were done very quickly because as soon as they found out, they started building a room for the Queen, a room for the Duke, a bathroom, and an extra outhouse for the staff. Moving on, did you hear that on this visit, the Queen and the commoners were side by side? When Roderick O'Connor's family got to hear that Queen Elizabeth II was going to be staying at their home in Tasmania, they went and constructed an additional room. During the 1954 visit, he said, they called it the Queen's Room. But the Queen wasn't the only one staying with them. Of course, Prince Philip was there too, and she had her staff as well. So Roderick's family had to build a place called Dowagertree's Room to house the Queen's staff so they could stay in touch with Buckingham Palace through cable. It was mostly for the wireless operators and things like that, but it needed to be constructed because there was nowhere else to put them. After Her Majesty had left, the family used that room as their playroom for many years. What's more is that May, Mr. O'Connor's grandmother, and Rod, his father, both stayed at Connerville when the Queen was there. As far as we know, it was the first time that common people were permitted to stay in the residence while the Queen lived in a commoner's house, so it was pretty amazing. It was an extremely big deal for their family, and Roderick went on and expressed his sadness over the fact that the link is no longer there. This visit and overnight stay of Her Majesty is a big part of Connerville's history, and it has managed to keep their property known to some extent. Finally, why did Queen Elizabeth II decide to stay there? The possibility of staying at the old house began long before the guests arrived. Mr. O'Connor believes that it began with his grandmother's nieces, who became familiar with Prince Philip over time. According to him, Prince Philip had been to Connerville and stayed there before, back in 1948 and 1950. He thinks it was because of that relation that it was suggested that they stay at Connerville when they were in Australia. Either way, it seemed as if the Queen enjoyed enjoyed her stay at their residence very much. She wandered around the property, talked to staff, and ended up getting her hands dirty while she was there. Mr. O'Connor also mentioned that she put in a beautiful golden elm, which we can still see now. Prince Philip also planted a tree, but they're not exactly sure which one it was. So, not just for the Queen, the trip seemed to be a good time for Mr. O'Connor's family as well. Near the end, he recalled that one of the things that stood out was how open she was, keeping in mind how very young she was at the time, and there was still a lot of formality, but they were surprised by how smoothly and easily they could converse with her. Imagine talking to the Queen on your farm. Now, that's something we're sure they couldn't possibly have imagined. And now for some other related news. First off, Queen Elizabeth II knew that she wouldn't be coming back from Balmoral. A royal expert says that Queen Elizabeth II chose to die in Balmoral because she knew her time was coming to an end. She decided to spend her last days in the Aberdeen estate that she adored. The expert said that the Queen could be just a mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother at Balmoral, and so she chose to end her life in a place where she could leave her crown at the gates. Katie continued by stating that she was the Queen of Scots, and she wanted this to be part of her ultimate homecoming. So the fact that she actually ended up passing away at that spot is a blessing for her, since it was what she truly wanted. Next up, night trains are scheduled for mourners traveling to London for the state funeral. Transport officials have confirmed that additional rail services would be available for those making the trip to London to honor the Queen. On some routes, a restricted service will be available overnight. From Wednesday, when the people can visit the lying-in state in Westminster Hall beginning at 17 BST, demand is anticipated to be very high. During the time of grief, the rail delivery group stated that it was doing everything it can to ensure seamless travel. The public will be able to visit the casket of the Queen, who passed away on Thursday at the age of 96, for 4 full days at Westminster Hall before her funeral. 4 days aren't enough for the number of people wanting to pay their respects to their Queen. Her Majesty held a special place in all of our hearts. Millions, if not hundreds of thousands, are anticipated to visit the capital. Losing a Queen that was your ruler for almost a century can hardly be easy. Lastly, Llandaff gets ready for their first visit from the royal couple. In one area of Cardiff, plans for King Charles III's first trip to Wales as monarch are underway. Before the King and Queen's consort's arrival on Friday, Llandaff has patched potholes, painted poles, and trimmed back hedges. Before activities at the Senedd and Cardiff Castle, the royal couple will join a service of prayer and remembrance for the Queen at Llandaff Cathedral. The people of this quiet town are expecting a huge crowd. Some village residents are dissatisfied with the short notice provided to move cars because some routes in the community have been closed for access. Unfortunately, Cardiff Council stated that large broadcasting vans must be relocated onto the green and set up with cables and scaffolding. Despite the disruptions, the whole town is excited and nervous about this visit. A few residents have shared their plans of wearing their best outfits and jewelry just to get a glimpse of the King. Coffee shops are getting bookings in advance, and the whole town is buzzing with life. Looks like King Charles will get the warmest welcome here. That's a wrap for this video. How do you feel after finding out that the Queen of England stayed at a commoner's home during one of her visits? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.